Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into my channel today. So in light of Black History Month, I thought why not bring some attention to something more than the routine Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King stories we hear about every February. No offense to them, I greatly appreciate the efforts that Black people did for civil rights. We're still fighting for them today. But I just wanted to go beyond that a little bit today and embrace my roots more. So I decided to do these white face paint dots by they're inspired by the African face paint. Of course, I did westernize it a little bit, disclaimer, so don't come for me. Anyway, I do want to address an article because there was a whole question mark on whether I should even do face paint or face dots, white dots. There's an article online by Zipporah Green, and it's talking about whether Black people in America should even participate in face paint, wearing dashikis, wearing Kinte Cloth, anything that is Afrocentric, as they used to call it. Basically, she's saying that Black people are capable of culturally appropriating one another. In the article, she talks about how it's become a trend for Black Americans to wear African cultured clothing and makeup, and how we are basically out of line by doing so. Dashikis and face paint, when worn by a Black American, is an insult to a native Nigerian or Ghanaian, etc., is what she's saying. Basically, because we're not familiar with the culture enough to participate. She goes on to say things like, I think the title is even like, Black people, please stop appropriating African clothing and tribal marks. Yeah, Black people, please stop appropriating African clothing and tribal marks. And then she says something like, I know that African-inspired prints are popping right now, and many African designers have chosen to showcase certain styles to the global fashion scene, but it appears to me that me and my African friends that it's been taken a step further. I understand for the most part, many of my own Black American friends are well-meaning when they talk about African fashion, but the end result is still the same. You take a cultural dress, mark, or trait with all its religious and historical connotations, dilute it, and bring it out for occasions when you want to look quote-unquote trendy. And she says, is that any better? So my response is actually that I agree with her to some degree, but I agree more with a response article that was posted on the Huffington Post by Tyree A. Boyd. And his article is called On Dashikis and Face Paint, Decolonizing the African Culture Line. So what he says that I agree with is where he says that although it is in fact true that Black Americans are suddenly participating and in our own westernized ways in African culture, it is actually admirable that we're doing so. So I agree, because I think that to restrict our efforts would be promoting white supremacy and empowering the same division that sent Africans to America during the transatlantic slave trade, just as Boyd says. I agree with Boyd's point of view because in my personal experience, what I saw as I grew up was nothing but white appropriation via relaxers, turning up our noses at people with ethnic names, wanting to quote-unquote talk white, and the whole Pandora's box that came along with being called an Oreo. I used to be called an Oreo, so I get that. I used to want to give my children names that didn't quote-unquote sound Black, and on the phone I didn't want to quote-unquote sound Black. I was just one of many Black Americans who didn't want to be Black. Subconsciously, we're all the same way. We want to look exotic. Whether that means looking Spanish or what, it was to look like something more than Black, and definitely not looking African. So now that I'm grown, to see African culture embraced by my nieces and my little cousins and the rest of Generation Y and millennials, I'm happy and proud to see us happy and proud to be Black. My aunt was engrossed in African culture and natural hair long before it became a trend. I learned a lot from her, like how to cook plantains for one. But I also learned early on that being Black means more than just what I grew up believing, which was trying to be white. There's more to my culture than relaxers trying to get into white neighborhoods and Disney movies and trying to choose a white name for my child. There's Kinte Cloth, there is cowrie shells, shea butter, and face paint. And to me, that's what it means to embrace being Black. It means to go to my roots, and being African or African culture is a part of that for sure. Like now, particularly for me, I know that there's more than just African, and most Black Americans, yes, there's more than just African in our blood now, because we have been brought over here so long ago, and slavery ended for us a lot later than it ended for people in the Caribbean. So there's a lot of other things in our bloodline. There is white in our bloodline, there's Native American in our bloodline, but I do know that my identity is Black, and who more to identify with as being Black than African or even Hebrew. Speaking of African, and particularly in the Ashanti tribe, the scarf that I'm wearing on my head is Kinte Cloth, and it came originally from the Ashanti tribe. And by the way, the Ashanti tribe was Hebrews, so I do know that I'm a Black Hebrew. The Ashanti tribe was Black Hebrews, so Kinte Cloth is actually a Black Hebrew thing. So even if you don't consider yourself African, but you consider yourself a Hebrew, a Black Hebrew, you can still wear Ashanti inspired fabrics and patterns such as Kinte Cloth. So yeah, in response to Miss Green, if I would decide to wear a dashiki and I'm a Black American and most Black Americans are Black Hebrews, then we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. So anyway, so I'm doing this white face paint, right? It's white and it's dots. I did a lot of research to try to figure out exactly what it was. I did ask people whether it would be considered offensive, and I wouldn't be posting this if I did consider it offensive, or if I was told that it would be offensive. So hopefully this video does not offend anybody, but I'm sure it might offend the Zipporah Greens out there. Not to diss her or anything, but Black people, we all have different takes on pretty much everything. Some people consider ourselves Egyptian, some people consider ourselves Hebrew, and they're technically enemies. Some people consider ourselves just Black Americans. They don't want to have anything to do with any cultures of any kind. But I myself, this is what I consider myself to be. So yeah, when I was researching African face paint, I saw that it was used for hunting purposes, religious reasons, and social identity. Some women in particular in the Efik tribe of southeastern Nigeria, please correct me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, or forgive me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but they used face painting as an initiation into the society of women. This makes me think about when I went to Atlanta for my little cousin's ceremony for her induction into womanhood. She turned 14, and again, this is from my aunt who has been she actually lived in Kenya for years, and maybe some other countries, but I know particularly she lived in Kenya for a few years. So she has definitely embraced her African bloodline. So anyway, this was her daughter. When she turned 14, she had a whole ceremony for her daughter to be inducted into womanhood. She painted her daughter's face white. Her daughter wore all white. And we basically sang songs, went into the woods, and prayed for her, as well as gave her advice and tips on womanhood. She not only got to get all the attention, but she had to prepare in advance. She had to memorize certain things about womanhood. She had to tell us why it was important to be a woman of dignity and respect and honor. And she had to learn certain things about womanhood that most 14-year-olds don't really know. She knew, for example, that women are the only species on this earth that can lose as much blood as we do every month without dying. That stood out to me. So yeah, that's one thing that face painting can be used for. I also saw that female native dancers in the Efik tribe called a bang, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly either, they use painting as a way to express their beauty, love, and complete femininity. So that in itself tells me that face painting is used to look pretty and to be feminine. And I know there's tons of different cultures, tribes, and countries in Africa, and that depending on the pattern and the color, it could mean anything. But hopefully I got my point across, which was to look respectful, culturally aware, and inspiring to somebody as well. I know in the African community, a lot of you know that white actually means death. So I'm thinking with the chrysalising phase that I'm in, that maybe the old me is dying and the new me is being reborn, and that's the look that I might be portraying with this. Also, there's so many, again, tribes and cultures and countries in Africa that it really could mean a variety of things depending on which one you choose to identify with the most. And that's really what you have to do in order to determine what the dots mean. So yeah, I consider myself Black American, which obviously means that my roots are in Africa and or Israel. So I do consider myself entitled to wear this look. I'm not just doing it for fashion, I'm doing it for awareness, and I hope that I did enlighten somebody and even inspire somebody. And if I did, let me know by liking the video and by sharing it with your friends, and let's start a conversation as well in the comment section. I would love to talk to somebody about it a lot more than this. So yeah, let me know what you all think, and I will talk to you later. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and shalom. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out more videos. It'll be a lot easier if you hit that subscribe button. Here are some previous videos. Hi everybody, say hi.
Hi.
Thank you all for tuning in. Excuse my ashy elbow, oh my gosh. But this video is how I do my daughter's wash day. I'm so excited to finally be doing this. So as